Chroniclers describe peasants scavenging for roots and grasses, while noble lords retreated into their storerooms, rationing out preserved grains and salted meats. Starvation sharpened class divides, reminding everyone who had control over the land and its produce. Nobles were not immune to scarcity, but they had resources to cushion the blow. Their pantries held salted hams, smoked fish, and barrels of preserved fruits, lasting through lean months. They could also import goods from other regions when local harvests failed. Yet even castles felt the pressure when famine spread widely. Fasts grew smaller, spices more carefully measured, and meat less freely offered to guests. Religion also played into the rhythm of feast and famine. Lent and fasting periods were enforced across all classes, deliberately reducing rich food intake and stretching supplies. This rhythm of restraint was followed by bursts of indulgence during feasts like Easter or Christmas, when the tables overflowed with roasted meats, pies, and puddings. The cycle of denial and reward was woven into the medieval experience of eating. Ultimately, medieval diets were shaped as much by uncertainty as by tradition. Food was fragile, vulnerable to the whims of weather, war, and plague. In a single year, one village might celebrate abundance while another starved. To live in the Middle Ages was to live at the mercy of both the soil and the sky, feasting one month and fasting the next. If noble halls dazzled with display and peasant huts scraped by with survival, monasteries offered a very different relationship with food. For monks and nuns, meals were less about indulgence and more about discipline, food as fuel for prayer, contemplation, and service to God. Yet even within this simplicity, monastic diets reveal much about medieval life. The rule of Saint Benedict, which guided many monastic communities, emphasized moderation. Meals were to be plain, frugal, and taken in silence. Meat from four-legged animals was often forbidden, with fish, eggs, cheese, and vegetables serving as the primary sources of nourishment. Bread and ale, of course, remained staples. Monks typically ate twice a day, once at midday and again in the evening. Though fasting days reduced this to a single meal, the idea was not to starve, but to curb gluttony and keep the body humble before God. Food was eaten in the refectory, a large communal dining hall. Silence was enforced, and instead of chatter, one monk read aloud from scripture or the writings of saints. This turned meals into spiritual exercises, reminding the brethren that even eating could serve a higher purpose. The act of consumption was sanctified by ritual, reinforcing the monastery's rhythm of prayer, labor, and restraint. Monasteries also became famous for their innovations in food production. To sustain themselves, monks maintained orchards, vineyards, gardens, and fish ponds. These self-sufficient systems allowed monasteries to flourish, even during times of famine. In fact, some of the earliest developments in brewing and cheesemaking came from monastic communities whose skill and discipline produced goods valued across Europe. Beer brewed by monks was clean, nourishing, and reliable. Centuries later, some of those traditions still survive in Trappist ales. Of course, human nature crept in. Records show that some monasteries bent the rules, interpreting no meat as no beef or pork, while happily consuming poultry. Wealthier abbeys flushed with donations sometimes enjoyed meals that looked suspiciously like noble feasts, complete with spiced fish and elaborate pastries. These excesses drew criticism, but they also reflected how even sacred spaces were not immune to the temptations of comfort and status. Ultimately, monastic meals represented an ideal: simplicity, discipline, and devotion. Food was not meant to distract from God, but to support a life dedicated to Him. In a world of hunger and indulgence, the monastery carved out a unique middle path where every bite was both nourishment and prayer. In the Middle Ages, what you ate wasn't just about filling your stomach. It was about telling the world who you were. Food reinforced social hierarchy as clearly as clothing, castles, or land ownership.